The evolution and introduction of new ideas. Of course, this is a sign that our society, our community is really active, vibrant and developing. That's great, and it's good that there are new kids on the block and new faces. But what with the old ones? What about the basics, actually the basics of impact assessment? Because we still are talking about IA, also an acronym, but hopefully well known. Yeah, the issue is, what about the old? Oh, you can't see, it's a Van Gogh, with the poor gypsy boy with the tear. Over time, we seem to have neglected the key issues in impact assessment. The standard elements we always hear in the basic courses. Much attention they are given in daily practice. How much discussion you don't have about scoping, screening, etc. However, very, very little discussed actually in literature, in EIA review, IAPA, etc., or at our main meetings. Only very few scoping articles. Thank you for this message. Okay. And what we think actually, these things are hardly discussed in the program and here at the conference. Perhaps they are not a new kid on the block, but they are the basics, the building blocks actually of the whole impact assessment structure. So are these issues not are these orphans mere concepts of yesteryear, or are they still relevant? And is that a problem? So the issue of learning, continuous and critical reflection about these key issues, we think that's important. Important to stimulate improvement and innovation also on the basics of IA. How to do better scoping and not start again on the basic level again. And it's vital, we think, for an IA community. It needs institutional memory. You have to remember what the basics are, how to do that, and also to analyze that back. Prevent forgetting key lessons we should try to do, we think, provide maintenance on these basics. How to improve it and to maintain them well, the scoping, the screening, the tiering, significance issues. Build a knowledge base and keep perspective. What is really important? Is it just a new kid on the block, or does that also need basics? And yeah, make a plan. We have South Africa here, so that's why we make a plan for the future. We think there's need for adoption of IA parents. So now the door is closed and you are trapped. You can't go out becoming a foster parent. We think we should provide them a proper home at IAA, these issues. So the structure of the session, we will have some distinguished panel members. First of all, screening. We do it just by the IA process. It's done by Francois Retief. He will introduce this poor bugger. Then Bill Ross will talk about scoping, Johan Nel about significance. I will do a bit about tiering, what the hell is that, and follow-up will be introduced by Angus. Then we will have discussion with you, and are they really orphans, and which orphans we have not mentioned and still also are very important to the basics of impact assessment. Are there all the orphans here in the room? And then, yes, then we will really close the door and we get into this adoption process of who has a welcome home for these poor buggers. And next year we will have not a new acronym, but just a session about scoping, or screening, or tiering, or follow-up. Okay, that's enough for now. I think you can do now.
Okay, thanks, Jos. Okay, screening. I'm just going to share with you why I think screening is an orphan. And then I would like to hear your view, whether you also think that we should pay more attention, maybe have a session at next year's conference discussing screening in more depth. But basically screening, it's the first fundamental question asked in environmental assessment. Do we have to do an environmental assessment? I mean, that's fundamentally important to reflect on that question. And if we say yes, to what extent? So these are the two very important screening questions, and I don't think we necessarily reflect too much on this. This is a recent paper we published on screening, which just gives an international comparison. And what is interesting here is that is the variance. I mean, we've got some countries that do 60 EIAs a year, and others that do more than 5,000. Okay, so why this diversity and what does it tell us? I don't know, I don't think we've reflected on this. What is the best screening method or combination of methods? Reflection on screening versus effectiveness, because I do think that there's a link and I'll get back to that. And then causality between screening and effectiveness, adding value. Because if we get screening wrong, then I think we're in trouble in terms of our environmental assessment system. So why is it important? I think screening underpins efficiency, it influences effectiveness, and it defines significance, essentially. And if you look at these two concepts, they are, I think, efficiency and effectiveness is at the forefront of debate in environmental assessment. So why is it considered an orphan? Very limited reflection at conferences on screening. I went through old proceedings and I couldn't find anything really. Peer-reviewed literature, I only found 4 papers published in Yale Review IAPA and Thomas Fisher's journal, Journal of Environmental Assessment Policy and Management, dealing specifically with screening. However, as Jos says, I think we do talk about it when we deal with law reform processes. And most countries do have some form of screening guideline. This is the South African context. It's analysis we did of papers presented at our national conferences. Of the 463 papers, only 5 dealing with screening since between 1997 and 2008. So to me, screening really is the elephant in the room. And so hopefully we can give a bit more attention. So do we need to take a closer look at screening? I think yes. So if there are any of you that feel like I do, please, after the session, come and talk to me. If you're interested in organising a session maybe for next year's conference, specifically on screening, I'll be happy to share ideas with you.